Episode 19. Yes, guys, welcome to the 19th episode of the Connect the Dots podcast. For today, we talk to an expert in veteran homelessness. He brings experience from the military, from recovery, and from years of building programs that actually help veterans get back on their feet. So without further ado, thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. Benjamin Jeffrey is a Gulf War Navy veteran and president of the Mobilizing America's Commitment to Veterans, the MACV Foundation. He serves thousands of marginalized veterans in Arizona and advances trauma-informed systems of housing, recovery, and reintegration. He's a program consultant and part of the development team building an innovative and replicable model called the Tanner Thomas Village for Veterans, a 37-home, 3-acre veteran community in South Phoenix, designed to become a national model for supportive housing. Previously, Benjamin expanded veteran-specific treatment pathways for hundreds of clients through Aaliyah Health Group and Vogue Recovery Center, and he is on the Lived Experience Subcommittee on the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Alliance in Phoenix, Arizona. His leadership, shaped by lived experience and decades of service, focuses on building scalable solutions that honor the nation's responsibility to those who have served. Thank you so much for joining me today, Benjamin Jeffrey.
Vedant, thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I want to start on something that you recently went to. So you recently spoke at the National Lived Experience Leadership Conference. What did that experience mean to you personally, and what messages from that event feel most urgent right now?
Well, it was actually in Cincinnati, Ohio, just a couple of days ago. I was invited to present at the National Coalition for the Homeless under the executive direction of uh, Director Donald Whitehead. And he chose to do it in Cincinnati. And it was the National Lived Experience Leadership Conference. And it was actually my first conference. And I was like a kid in a candy store. It meant a lot for me to be there. Uh, I will say that in order for me to go, I had put in an RFP, a request for proposal. And they said, well, what would you present about? And I undertook a very ambitious task, which was, it's kind of like this old thing for anybody watching. I can name that tune in one note. It's an old show. Like, how can you? And they go ding, and how do you know what that tune is in one note? Well, I did something similar. I said, I'm going to tell you the history of homelessness from 1933 after the Great Depression until 2025, and talk about how we can leverage history, the history of homelessness, so we don't get it twisted, and talk about it decade by decade, and leverage homeless history to inform the next generation of fidelity driven housing developments. And they said, name that tune. And they flew me out there. I put on my best clothes and my best business suit, and I showed up looking like a member of Congress with a 250th anniversary uh, United States pin on my lapel, and I was so scared. I thought that I was not going to be able to do it in the 60-minute time allotment, and we did it with the tech volunteers and the facilitators. We did it to a national audience and an online audience, and we were able to do it in 50 minutes with 10 minutes of question and answers. And the video will be out soon for everybody to see. But I think your question, Vedant, was what did it mean to me? And it meant a lot to me because I remember afterwards, a lot of people were coming up to me and asking me questions, and they wanted my contact information. And hey, can we do this in Chicago? Can we do this in Oregon, in Nebraska? And I said, sure, if you get the right components together, and we're all about transparency, but we're building something very special. But anyway, it was the history. It was the history. I mean, let's talk about it, right? What is the history? And I'm not going to present, regurgitate or reiterate an hour long presentation with you, but I will tell you that when you want to know why we have a national homeless problem, this ain't our first rodeo. This ain't the first time we've seen a bad homeless problem. It has been a century of everything from redlining to racial segregation to the civil rights movement, the GI Bill, all the way to Dr. Sam Semberis and Pathways to Housing, the Housing First model, and then 2 decades of data driven technical best practices that have effectively proved the Housing First model as the only viable solution in the United States of America, in conjunction with the low income tax credit, for through the IRS, to solve homelessness. And if we don't learn from history, what did our teacher teach us? Then we are condemned to repeat it. And so I did a crash course on the history of homelessness and with a focus on veteran homelessness. And incidentally, the punchline is that solving veteran homelessness over the last 10 years, we've been able to reduce veteran homelessness in the United States of America through a program called HUD-VASH. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, TAC, Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing. And that program was launched by President Bush Jr. and codified into law by President Obama, 2009, through the Hearth Act. And the people in this country have been solving homelessness through the Housing First model for 17 years now, and even longer. You're talking a decade of research that went into it before that. And so, and I brought in some science, and I'm trying to throw it back at you because, now my head's in it, but it comes from science. See, statisticians were always looking at homelessness from a macro point of view, like it was a bell curve, a Gaussian bell curve distribution approach, where you've got your average homeless person, you've got your chronic homeless person, and then and it was like shaped like a bell curve, and the Gaussian bell curve approach, and they thought that hey, it was all about averages, right? And soup kitchens, make them go to jail or treatment, and then give them a little help, and the problem solved, right? But they found out, Vedant, in in the late 1990s, they figured out that they were looking at it incorrectly. They found out that homelessness, from a statistician point of view, did not follow a bell curve, Gaussian bell curve distribution theory. It actually followed a power law to where it looked like a hockey stick. Your average homeless person is homeless for one day. That's the average. And the second greatest average is 2 days. But it's the ones at the top of the curve, the chronically homeless individual, that are taking the bulk of the taxpayer expenditures as far as ER visits, jails, institutions. All of the taxpayer expenditures are dealing with the curve, the chronic homeless population. And so, to finish my point here, what they found out through the efficacy of Dr. Sam Semberis, that created the Housing First model is that if you give a chronically, like the amount of time that that an individual is experiencing homelessness through chronicity, if you provide simply a home for a chronically homeless individual on a permanent basis, then in a matter of 3, 4, 5 years, or if forever, if necessary, they are able to learn how to take a shower again. To exercise their own autonomy and pursue treatment. They're able to learn how to close the fridge, lock the door, flush the toilet, make their bed, and over a period of time, they get better. But if you try the old stick and carrot approach, I always imagine it like this: a guy with the big police hat from the 1800s, he's walking around, you got to move along here, you got to move along. And he's got the stick and he wraps the homeless guy, the vagrant, the hobo, he wraps the guy in the back of the leg. You got to move along here. You can't sit around here. The stick and the carrot approach is draconian. It is archaic. Think about where we are today. It doesn't work because the stick and carrot approach might work well for a donkey, dangling a carrot out in front of the donkey. So the donkey's trying to get the carrot, right? We're not donkeys. We are intrinsically valuable human beings with a lot of purpose, and we have much to offer one another and this world. The stick and carrot approach violates the intrinsic motivations of human beings. Power law distribution became the adopted practice by President Bush, codified into law by President Obama. Housing first, permanent supportive housing with fidelity driven wraparound services allowed chronically homeless individuals to get better. And we stopped managing an 80-year-old problem and we started solving it with, with housing. And the fact of where we are today, and I have my own personal experience, and I can testify to the fact that it works because I'm right here. When you look at where we're at today, we are about ready to go back 2 decades. Why? There's no reason to start over. We know what works. We know what we have proven. The problem is that we've never had the full congressional appropriations to fund it. If we could fund it like we helped the VA fund it, then we could solve the problem. So we're about ready to go back into perpetual management when we could be on our way to continuing to solve chronic homelessness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense actually, and I really appreciate your answer to that question because it it shows and highlights, the true lack of understanding, I think, that exists in that we have solutions that work, like you were mentioning the housing first solution. And I actually was able to interview Dr. Samson Barris, and during that interview, he was able to, say and mention the statistics backing his model, the Housing First and Pathways Institute model, with an 80% success rate. And
80%. That's incredible.
this leads, honestly, perfectly into my next question, which is that what sort of like misunderstandings or misconceptions do you think are the most dangerous right now surrounding homelessness and cause the most harm in terms of future growth?
I'll break it down real simple. Everybody that is currently experiencing homelessness in the United States right now, they were once in a little bassinet in a crib, nursing from their mother. Everybody that is experiencing homelessness in the United States of America is a son or a daughter, is a brother or a sister, is a mom or a dad. And we are, like I said earlier, we are so valuable. We are so intrinsically valuable from a transcendent first cause called God. We are so valuable as human beings with semi-transcendent understanding. I can see myself doing a podcast, and I have the mental acuity to be able to understand the perception, and we are semi-transcendent human beings made in the image of God, if you will. And if that's who we are, how dare you? I don't think anybody's got the I don't think anybody has the room to say that homeless people are just a bunch of slackers, drug addicts, rapists, criminals. How dare you? And I don't care who's saying it. There is so much misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation surrounding the very human problem of homelessness that it is staggering. It is staggering. And you know what? I have done more armchair academia since I exited homelessness in the housing as a product of the housing first model that saved my life. I'm a veteran. I served in a war. I'm glad I didn't die. I don't think I was going to die, but I'm glad I didn't. I served my country and I needed some help. And if I remember your question correctly, because now I'm getting a little, I digress a little. But I'm just reminded of something that I used to say in my early days of being an advocate and a case manager and a program lead in the nonprofit sector. It reminds me of this thing that I came up with. This is my version. I've heard everything in the world. I always hear new stuff. But I remember when we were in school, there's a kid named Johnny. Johnny, he couldn't do the math. Johnny, there was something wrong with Johnny. And he didn't tie his shoes all the time, and he needed help. He had disabling conditions. And Johnny needed a tutor. I think we put him in special ed, and we took care of Johnny. And there was a system in place to take care of Johnny. Now, how many Johnnies were in elementary school? Not that many. Homelessness in the United States of America represents less than 1% of our population. Johnny represented less than 1% of the classroom. It's the same thing. Did we lock up Johnny? Did we throw Johnny in jail? Did we tell Johnny, you need to go get a job? Did we tell Johnny that it's your behavior? No. We helped Johnny. The homeless population is like the disabled population. They need a little bit of help. And if we are the greatest country in the world, which we're not, and don't even get me started on that. We are not the greatest nation on this planet. We used to be. About 10 months ago, 11 months ago, I think we were the greatest nation in the world. We're not anymore. And I'm not going to go down the political digression here, but what is our excuse? All we have to do is create a social safety net program that houses a couple million Americans. We need to build 7 million single family homes. We need to create housing for everybody. And do you know what would happen if we did? You would have more people join the military. You would have more people staying alive, not dying in the cold and the heat, and that would make it to college. Uh, you would have more people that would not die from early comorbidity deaths due to vulnerability factors of living rough, living outside. We have so many people that die in the state of Arizona every year because it's too hot. we have 100 days a year where we're over 110 degrees and we're losing on the average, 500 homeless people a year just to the heat. You know why? Because the World Health Organization says that when when you're in 104-degree temperatures or higher and you're out and you're in that for more than 24 hours at a time, your blood cannot cool down the surface of your skin the way your physiological body works. And your body will go into adverse health effects like a seizure or your bladder fails. And what happens is you go into heat stress and you stroke out and you die just from being outside. So you would think that there would be a political will to solve the problem. You would think that there would be a unilateral, wholesale support for preserving the preciousness of life amongst American citizens, but it stops right there. What ends up happening is maximum maximum capital appreciation, a capitalistic, money-driven society where the top 1% have all this wealth, and they've been lying to us for many years about trickle-down economics. It's not true. I'm not feeling it, and we're dying faster than we're solving the problem. Let me stop right there so I can turn it back over to you.
No, thank you, and I appreciate your answer twofold. One, because you know you you emphasize the and ignoring whatever politics may be going on currently in our country, just you know the sheer sort of like misunderstandings that exist in this country about a issue that should be it's complex, don't get me wrong, but that should be easy to get our minds around. Like it's not, it doesn't take that much effort, at least from my perspective, to understand that when someone is on the streets, when someone needs your help, as a country that is built upon, values such as helping the other man out, helping the other fellow, putting each other on our backs and lifting ourselves up, that doing that for the people who are unhoused, who are on our streets, they're also our fellow countrymen. They're also in this country. They're also the people who need help. And so ignoring them, or the sort of carrot and stick solution, is never going to work. It never has worked. And the the misconception that it does just absolutely shocks me.
What happened was by 2017, because of the housing first model, uh, there was a bunch of buckets where we were able to prove in the United States that we were solving homelessness. I think it was 29% in 2017. That's how we were able to break down the numbers, and we were able to reduce homelessness by 29% amongst a certain faction. And then there was all these other numbers that were similar. And then over the last 6, 7 years, I think we've seen a total increase in the average rent of something to the tune of 73, 74%. Like, hold on a second. What? And I wouldn't even believe it if somebody said it to me, but I remember. I remember. I remember when rent in Tempe, Arizona was $745 for a one-bedroom apartment, and then a year later it was 845. And every time you add $100 to rent, you have like a 9% increase in homelessness. It's not a joke. And there's a lot there. There's a lot of reasons there. And we it's all over the place. We know it. But let me tell you where that led. In 2022, after the safe conclusion of the pandemic, the masks came off. We still see the pictures of the feet on the ground where you have to do the social distancing. But when everything went back to normalcy, uh grandma that had worked her whole life, my grandma, your grandma, his grandma, is on Social Security, and her SSI, SSDI, maybe her pension barely covered the cost of living. So now in Phoenix, Arizona, there's this place called the Zone that was like just like blocks and blocks. It looked like a miniature Skid Row. And we had like 1,100 people in tents along the side of the road because all the other cities were shoving everybody to Central Phoenix. It wasn't Phoenix's fault. We never had the capacity to deal with the problem. Pandemic made it worse. Well, now the fastest growing faction as of 2022, 2023 was senior citizens. Like 3, 4,000 seniors were on the streets. Why? Why is grandma on the street with a walker, and yet people in Teslas are driving down the road going, I wonder what her behavior problem is? I don't think so. I don't think grandma and grandpa that worked their whole life paying into a system and did the best they could, and maybe that was a Johnny, I don't know. But it's structural violence, Vedant. It is structural violence to blame a population and dismiss it as a behavior problem when it is an affordable housing issue. And had we built, economists look back in retrospect right now, and there's a lot of rhetoric that had we known that this is what was going to happen after the Great Recession, we would have immediately started building millions of single family homes in 2010, 2011. Had we had a construction boom instead of an economic recovery and had the hindsight or the foresight to build, we could have prevented where we are. But that's why we're supposed to learn the lessons of history. Right now, we stand to prove to the future generations, we're about ready to show future generations that we didn't understand history, we didn't learn from it, and we're in the condemnation of repeating it right now if we don't course correct, if we don't get a hold of Congress and say, stop, fund the continuum of care program, do not cut the head off of the homeless response system, don't do it, you're going to regret it, because the economists are also saying at a macro level that we're headed towards a Great Depression. Because I'm sorry, we are not in a golden age. Prices have not come down. I'm not buying what you're lying about. And everybody knows it, but everybody's afraid to talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. In my car in downtown Phoenix on the side of the road, talking to you. I am 54 years old. I serve my country. I love my country. And the homeless response system saved my life. And I owe it to the next generation of leaders that are underneath bridges right now, hoping that somebody cares about them. Not that the police come along and put them in an internment camp in the middle of Nebraska or whatever. You know what I mean? What do you mean a concentration camp? What do you mean a labor camp? That is horrible. Don't even get me started.
Actually, I'm gonna do the exact opposite. I'm gonna rewind history. I want to focus a bit on your journey, your lived experience, and so it includes homelessness, recovery, and just rebuilding your life. And so, how does that lived experience influence the way you advocate, design programs, and lead?
That's a great question, man. I'm really honored that you would ask me that question. So, you know, I, I'm I was born in October 1971, Sacramento, California. I grew up in a biker family, wrong side of the tracks, on welfare. I remember when we would run out of food stamps when I was a kid. I remember this one moment, man, where I was like, "Mom, I'm so hungry." And she'd be like, "Here's a can of beans." And I didn't understand why. Well, they I didn't come from the greatest family. Uh, there was a drug issue. Uh, they did the best they could. I could tell you a good story. I could tell, but I grew up in a dysfunctional environment. And when I was 11 years old, 10 years old, the state of California took my two brothers and I away from our parents. We were living in an emergency shelter in Sacramento, California, and mom would take us to the park in the mornings and feed us mixed fruit out of a tin can. And one day, the park ranger that showed up to clean the park, the city worker, he called the police and he said, "There's a woman with three boys, and they're every day when I come here to clean the park, they're here. Somebody needs to intervene." So the next thing I know, I'm in the back of a police cruiser with my mom and my brothers, my little brother Free and my little brother Robert, and we were taken to the CRH, the Children's Receiving Home in Sacramento, and they split us up for a period of time. And I was with kids that were abused, neglected, sexually abused, and my best friend was a kid who stuttered when he talked because he had been traumatized. So I grew up in trauma. I grew up in psychological dysfunction, and I love my mom and dad. I will always love my mom and dad. I remember SeaWorld. I have good stories. When we got taken away, my uncle down in Beaumont, Texas, found out. My mom's little brother found out that Ben, Free, and Robert were in foster care after we got out of the receiving home. We were in a wonderful family had taken us in. Now we're at Virginia and Bob Burkett's house in Sacramento, and I got to do chores, and I'm trying to run away because I didn't have any discipline. So I'd run away and come back, and they'd say, "Okay, well, you got to do your chores." And I was so angry. My uncle Ray took Ben Thompson and adopted my brothers and me, and flew us out to Beaumont, Texas. And we went from absolute dysfunction to private Catholic school, baptized, confirmed in the Catholic Church, went to one of the top 100 private Catholic high schools in the country, Monsignor Monsignor Kelly Catholic High School down in Beaumont. So all my friends went to Stanford, Yale, Harvard, and then my name became Ben Jeffrey. And my adopted dad, Ray, is famously known to be one of the only effective attorneys that represented Leah Raymond, the from Kings and Queens, the woman that was in Scientology. Ray Jeffrey is a Texas super lawyer now in Bernie, Texas, or Bulverde, Texas, and he was on A&E Network, and he was able to fight Scientology to the extent where I remember I found out that he had to sleep with a pistol underneath his pillow because Scientology is scary. I love Tom Cruise. What's up with that? But so I graduated high school in Beaumont, Texas, and I didn't have any money to go to Harvard. Uncle Ray had done so much for me, I didn't want to ask him for anything. So I left home, graduated high school, and I joined the Navy. And I joined the Navy around the time when we attacked Kuwait in Desert Storm. And I went to boot camp, and I got stationed in Yokosuka, Japan in the 7th Fleet. And I went to apprenticeship school, and I became an aviation boatswain's mate. Went out to the 7th Fleet aboard the USS Independence, and I served about a year, 2 combat deployments, a little over a year in active combat. I've got a meritorious unit commendation medal, Southwest Service Medal with a couple silver stars. And I did a couple of years in the military. I'm not GI Joe. I went Navy SEALs. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the pull ups. I couldn't do enough pull ups. My friends could. My friends became Navy SEALs. I went back to the fleet. I got to visit Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Jebel Ali. They sat us out in the water, 50 miles off of Kuwait, writing "FU Saddam" on the bombs as we just launched 120 sorties a day. My claim to fame is I worked for President Bush Sr. and we took we protected the Muslim Shiite that were trying to migrate north of the 32nd parallel to escape the tyranny of Saddam Hussein. And I know that I helped kill people through flight operations. I'm the guy that ran up underneath the F-14 Tomcat, hooked it up to the catapult, ran out so I didn't get sucked into the intake manifold. And but my wartime specialty was jet blast deflectors, which is cool because JBD, jet blast deflector, sounded like my name, Benjamin David Jeffrey. JBD, Jeffrey Ben David. So that was I did a lot of time out at sea. I went around the world in the military, got an honorable discharge, separated from the reserves in 1994, came out to Arizona to live with my mom. I found my mom, my little brother. I found Free and my mom. My brother's name is James Free Thompson. Dad had been free from San Quentin prison, and he named his kids Ben Free. So that's my name, Ben, but with one E. But anyway, I've never told that story like that before. Uh, you can have the rights. So when I came back to Arizona, I got into landscaping, and then I became an iron worker. I built high rises. I was a lead connector, structural steel erector, and I became a journeyman iron worker at JIW, a certified welder. I walked I beams on high steel. I learned how to overcome my fear of heights. I built shopping centers, Walmarts, Targets, churches, mid rises, high rises, anything and everything in between, all the way from Yakima, Washington, down to Nevada, California, Arizona, built the valley here in Arizona. And I went so far as like Missouri and Arkansas, and traveled the country as an iron worker. I raised a family. I've got kids. They're all adults now. One of them is a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps. And then, you know, I'm a veteran. I'm just your regular average Joe, one enlistment veteran, which is predominantly what veterans are. Most veterans do one enlistment. So I never really went and got the free haircut on Veterans Day. I thought that was kind of I don't deserve that. But in 2017, Trump got elected, and Angela, the love of my life, the prettiest girl in the whole world, Angela left me because she was mad that Donald Trump got elected. And I'm like, what? That's not my fault. She snapped. And when she snapped, it broke my heart. I know broken hearts are real because I still don't know where the other half of mine is. and I lost it. I shoved a needle in my arm. I started shooting meth. I relapsed at 8 years of sobriety. And I lost a Nissan Pathfinder, a brand new Toyota Corolla, my home in Tempe, Arizona, by Arizona State University, and and gave it all away and moved down into a salt river bottom bed and lived in a Mad Max environment, unsheltered, in a camp with a tent, defecating in the woods, burying it, and pushed a shopping cart, dumpster dived Amazon to get Amazon throws away a lot of food, and it's like high end food. So I had all the food I could eat. I was still sucked up like a Safeway chicken, 115 pounds, soaking wet. I looked like Charles Manson without the swastika on my head. Uh, really bad. I'll send you a picture. You should put a picture of what I look like. Flash it on the screen. I'll make sure you get it. But I was in rough shape, and it was because of drugs. I was chronically homeless for 3 years. And one day I fell asleep behind a car wash in Tempe, Arizona. I was trying to charge my Obama phone, and I woke up to the Tempe police saying, "Hey, they're trying to operate a car wash, and you're sleeping right where the cars pull." And they go, "What's in the tackle box?" Oh, I go, "I just dumpster dived that. Why don't you open it up?" He goes, "What's that? What's that gun for?" "Oh, it's not a gun, officer. It's a BB gun." He's got his hand on his service revolver. He's like, "What's the BB gun for?" "It's for shooting rats, officer, down in the river bottom that tried to get my food supply hanging from the tree limbs." And he's like, "What?" "Open the tackle box." "What's the scale for?" "The bags of methamphetamine, the pipe, the syringes." I said, "Oh, that's just personal use." And then I go to jail, and I was like, "Damn it, I said I'd never go to jail again." So here I am repeating history, and the judge says, "Is there anybody in this court that is a veteran?" I'm in shackles. I raise my hand up. "I'm a veteran. You go stand over there." I had no idea. They put me in this thing called veteran court, post adjudication diversion program. And I went and got clean at Vogue Recovery Center in the Valor program for Alia Health Group. And the VA spent a lot of money rehabilitating me, probably a couple $100,000 over a year. And I excelled at dialectical behavior therapy. I underwent PTS, cognitive restructuring, and I never wanted to go back. I said, "God, if you could just help me stay sober, I will spend the rest of my life helping other people. Please, God." And God got me sober. And I got sober on July 14th, 2021. And they told me, Vedant, that I qualified for something called HUD-VASH. And so after I graduated all of this treatment and learned how to sever the tethers of my trauma, incorporating coping mechanisms and behavior change, and stayed sober and went to meetings and got a sponsor, worked the 12 steps, and continued on with relapse prevention and therapy, I became the poster child for how the Valor program worked. And I was very proud of that. I wrote a 13-page paper called My Very Bad, Icky, No Good, Horrible Experience in Treatment. And they spread it around the country. It's a really good read. So authentic. I wrote it with a pencil, like I was in jail. And I wrote it while I was in residential treatment. And then the VA got a hold of me and they said, "Hey, you're doing good, buddy. and we've got a voucher for you. You qualify. I didn't know I had all these benefits. I'm not a disabled veteran at the time, and so I accepted the housing first model, and I got a low income subsidy for a studio apartment at this place called Victory Place in Phoenix, Arizona, and I got, I got new teeth, I got dental work done, I got glasses, I got a physical. They put me on this thing, a $25,000 medication called Maviret, which eradicated hepatitis C from intravenous drug use. I'm not going to die anymore. The VA, the taxpayers, saved my life. And when they did, I didn't just sit around in an apartment. I went to work for the VA in the CWT program. Tax free, $15 an hour. Back then, I was a doctor's assistant. I handled robotic prosthetics. I built wheelchairs for patients, assembled walkers, assisted physical therapist. I worked for a section chief at the VA. Then I went back to Alia Health Group, and I helped Dr. Vaughn Williams run that Valor program in business development because I've got lived experience. So that was 2022, 2023. And then I got into nonprofit program management, helped create a program called Carry Forward, 10 Steps to Carry Forward. I figured out by getting an HMIS license and becoming an outreach project within the coordinated entry system, I figured out that you've got to do 10 things to get housed. And it's all about documentation readiness, soft point engagements, staying consistent in touch with the case manager. And I would do it from a white van driving around with a laptop arm in HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System database. And I'd have the mail in my door from a P.O. box for the nonprofit. And so I'm driving around like the mailman for all the homeless people. And I helped get a lot of homeless people out of the river bottom where I used to live. And the story goes on and on. But then one day, to kind of get up to where we are right now, one day, a woman ran up to me in an alley when I was picking up clients to go to a SOAR appointment down at Cass, which is our homeless shelter in Phoenix. It's overcrowded, right? And this woman ran up to me in an alley and she says, I was sexually assaulted by Al Qaeda. I feel like I'm back in Iraq. I'm suicidal. I'm a veteran. Will you help me? And I was like, what? And she slapped her military ID on me, and it was bad. She was in bad shape. So I helped her. Come to find out, she was a 9/11 first responder, retired Air Force, hooked on fentanyl, 120 pills a day, spending $5,000 in disability money, feeding an entire population of homeless people, living in a trap house, trying to do the right thing, trying to get her life together. People were mooching off her, and she was caught in the middle of it. I got her out of that situation and I saved her life by the grace of God. God working through me. I became the hand of God in a situation where I was used to guide her and help her navigate a system of help. And she ended up graduating that same Valor program. And then she got her life together and she's doing great. We contacted Arizona Senator Sinema, her people at the time, and they provided like a Legend Heroes scholarship. She got a golden retriever puppy, service animal. He's in training right now. She's doing great. She looks beautiful. She's a wonderful person and a good friend to this day. And some people heard about the story I wrote. I took it offline because it's a grenade, Vedant. It's a grenade. It's a grenade. And if you tell the story, it blows all of us up. It makes all of us look really bad. It's called Unsung Hero. And I took it offline. We're thinking about making a Netflix movie out of it. I've got the people to do it, but the government would probably buy it and put it on a shelf somewhere. We know how that goes. But anyway, she was actually a POW. She was captured by Al Qaeda. She was in the another helicopter with aside Jessica Lynch, held in captivity by Al Qaeda in '03 March, and she was rescued by the 82nd Airborne. And when I put all the pieces together, I couldn't believe it, and I said, "I'll hang the hat of my career on what happens to Monica." And so I'm very grateful that Monica succeeded. She she's a go-getter. She's a military veteran. She's highly decorated. She was homeless. And because of that, some people approached me, some governor's advisors approached me. Said, "We heard about this story. We need you to tone it down a little bit. What would you do if we told you we're going to build a homeless veteran village? Would you know how to operate it?" Uh, yeah, yeah. And so I've spent the last couple of years in pre-development with Tanner Community Development Corporation, and we have created a transformational program through HUD-VASH that'll be online next Veterans Day if everything goes well. And I'm the superintendent for the construction company that's building it. The guy that's building it is a Purple Heart Airborne Ranger, retired. The people that are supporting it are John McCain's friends and Senator Ruben Gallego, Senator Mark Kelly, Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, Arizona Department of Housing, American Rescue Plan, HUD. And we are building a transformational program that addresses the full range of social determinants of health through a 10 pillars of support model: basic needs, housing, health and wellness, justice involvement assistance, higher education, and anything and everything in between, with the idea of giving veterans a hand up, not just a handout, and pushing transformational programming in a proof of concept replicable model that we can take anywhere in the United States and solve veteran homelessness. Right now, we got 35,000 homeless veterans in the United States. Why? Why do we have 35,000 homeless veterans in the United States? And if they need a program, fine, let's get them in a program. But if it's not their fault, how dare us allow our men and women who have served to fall into the despondency of homelessness? And the last thing I'll say and turn it over to you is that it's our patriotic moral obligation to honor the social contract that we've made with veterans. If you serve this country, Abraham Lincoln said, then we will take care of you one way or the other. Whatever you need, we got you. In Tanner Thomas Village for Veterans and the MACV Foundation and Commissioner Chuck Byers and Dr. Vaughn Williams and Airborne Ranger George Sutherland and Del Monte and Kerwin Brown and all the people around me that I'm speaking for right now are what that commitment looks like in practice.
And before I move on to my next question, which again you beautifully transitioned into what I was going to ask you, I
Good.
wanna I wanna conclude that long answer with a little bit of my own note, which is that, you know, just hearing, your story and the story of Monica and the story of everyone else you've talked about and the people you're with right now. I mean, it's very unfortunate what's happened to everyone, but I can't help but leave with with a smile on my face, and with how when we come together and put whatever differences we may have aside and really just focus on the fact that we are all humans, we are all in this country, we all rely upon each other for success, that when you come together, then miracles can happen. You can get someone out of whatever situation they may be, and with God's graciousness, you can truly make anything happen, and you can change lives. And I mean, I commend you for both your story and both what you've been doing in your work, because it's truly like it's honestly sad to see the things that have happened to people in this country, and the stories that you've said, and the stories that are untold even today. um but seeing people who can work together and bring those people out of whatever situation they may be in, and put a smile on one other person's face and change one other life. We need more people like that on this planet, that's for sure.
By the grace of a loving and forgiving God, there go I. Um, there's an old story that I heard when I was a kid. It was about a child that was on a beach, and the kid would walk down the beach, and the beach had all these starfish all over the beach, and he would grab a starfish and he would throw it back in the ocean. And this old man was walking a dog by, and he goes, "I don't know why you're doing that. There's a lot of starfish on this beach. You're not making a difference." And the kid looks at the old man, the grumpy old man, and he picks up a starfish and he throws it back out in the ocean on a beach full of starfish. And he said it made a difference for that one. And that's what we do. I'm an advocate. I represent my organization that I am privileged to serve as president of the Mobilizing America's Commitment to Veterans Foundation, with a board of directors that are all highly qualified people, more than me. And they see something in me, and they lift me up, and they allow me to lead because they care about me. But I forgot where I was going, but that's what we do. We intervene, we triage, we redirect, or we intervene with housing intervention services, and we do it by the book. And we're going to build this village, and we're going to continue to do outreach in the community, and we're going to meet people where they are, and we're going to work with faith-based organizations. We're going to continue to go to conferences to get the message out there that, who am I to judge you? Who am I to say that you have a behavior problem when you simply cannot afford the price of living? I mean, I always think to myself, would I let my grandmother with a walker live on the side of the road down in downtown Phoenix? I wouldn't want that. And right now it's unavoidable. There's not enough federal resources, and the government's trying to strip it all away under misinformation, a false narrative that somehow we have a broken system because of our system. It's not the system that's broken. It's the affordable housing crisis that has led to people not being able to pay less than 40% of their monthly income on a mortgage or rent. When people are paying 50, 60%, they can't afford to. And then don't even get me started on the Medicaid, the SNAP benefits, and everything else going on. We can turn this into a CNN explosive political session right now, but it doesn't matter. All we need is bipartisan understanding, transparency. That is why I look up to Senator Ruben Gallego in Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs. That's why I look up to Congressman Andy Biggs, who's going to be running for governor. I support anybody that supports what's going on. That's why I look up to Executive Director Kerwin Brown, that runs Tanner Community Development Corporation, and Dr. Benjamin Thomas Sr., that created Tanner Thomas Village for Veterans. He is the pastor of a church that has been around for like 100 years, the oldest African American church in Arizona, Tanner Chapel. Martin Luther King spoke there in the 1960s. Imagine I'm working for an organization where Martin Luther King shared the gospel. And it doesn't matter if you believe, if you're a believer or not. It all goes back to we, you, me, and everybody around us. Everybody from Ann Oliva and Marcy Thompson and Mary Frances Kenyon at the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Shout out to Steve Berg and everybody over Donald Whitehead at the National Coalition for the Homeless. USICH executive director until it got disbanded. United States Interagency Council on Homelessness executive director Jeff Olivet, that I got to meet this week in Ohio, who's over at Harvard right now. These are the icons of an industry. Ann Oliva, the CEO for the National Alliance and Homelessness, she helped create the HUD-VASH program that saved my life. These are my people, man. This is my tribe. And you know what? We are data driven. We are no nonsense. Best practices, systems that work. All we're asking for at a national level is stop allowing our men and women who have served and the general population to die outside based on a lack of affordable housing. And please, for the love of Mike, fund the Continuum of Care program under Secretary Scott Turner. God bless him. He needs to recognize fidelity-driven housing first systems are the only solution to solve homelessness. And that applies directly to veterans. And we don't want it to go away. And I look up to these people that I work with. I am the least of my colleagues. And I will spend the rest of my life, Vedant, because of what God did for me. I will spend the rest of my life reaching my hand back to the addict and the homeless person that still suffers, because that is my vocation. That is my calling. And if I didn't get that calling until I was 50 years old, well, at least I know what it is now. And how I got there is very important. So thank you for asking me the question about my life. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. But we need bipartisan congressional appropriations to fully fund a $5 to $10 billion program. Look, check it out. What is our GDP? What is our national GDP? What do we have? A couple trillion dollars? $2,000 billion. Where's that money going? Wait a second. 900 billion to the Department of Defense? Couldn't we just have the greatest military in the world for maybe 600 billion and maybe fund universal health care like other first world countries do? Get rid of this capitalistic, everybody out for himself, working in a silo. Maximum capital appreciation is all I want. It's about me and mine. Why can't we just have an advanced society that invests the money? Because if you don't, people will die. And I'll leave it like this. I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but I'll leave you with a little parable. A man prayed to God one day, and he said, God, why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? How could you let all of this pain and suffering happen on the planet? Why? I'm mad at you, God. And he sits for a little while and he hears a still small voice in his head. And it says, I've sent you millions of doctors, lawyers, scientists, and you keep killing them. You keep killing the people that are born. In the name of what? Money, power, prestige, pomp. I am not a rich, successful man. Or am I? Or am I? If I do the work of the people and advocate for the person that is suffering out there, who is a greater and a richer man in this world? Me or Elon Musk, who thinks that people shouldn't have social services? With all due respect to the man that's going to get us to Mars. Hey, mad props, Elon or Mr. Musk. I hope you get us there. I think Elon gets $100 billion in taxpayer money a year. How come we can't have 10 for the homeless response system? Think of the lives that we would save. Right now, the homeless response system and the permanent supportive housing program is in jeopardy of losing 170,000 people that have already exited homelessness and gotten into a low income subsidy back out to the streets. And they're not giving us enough time to figure it out. It is a humanitarian crisis that we are looking at, as economists say, that we're walking into a Great Depression in 2026. And then in the middle of that Great Depression that we're on the precipice of, they're going to strip Medicaid away through work requirements and reporting requirements at the end of next year. What are we doing? What are we doing? We need 40, 50 billion dollars for universal health care. Maybe more. We need $40 million in or whatever it is in SNAP benefits. We need to take care of Johnny. We need housing to keep people safe in the sweltering heat so our body doesn't go into adverse heat stress and we die. Because the people that are dying are somebody's dad, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's brother. It's very philosophical. It's not rocket science. We just need the political will to do it. But I digress. Let me turn it back over to you because I know you've got an agenda.
No, my agenda revolves completely around what you're saying, and what you've been saying makes complete sense. I mean, it's no, I won't get into specifics probably because I don't know them all, but the money that this country uses and where we put that money can definitely there are definitely many views on how that money can be spent and how that money should be spent, and there are definitely some people in this world and parts of our communities who need that money, who need that support, who need you know not even a shelter, but need a hand to hold on to them, need a friend, need someone to bring them up. They need, actually I'll put a reference into someone I interviewed earlier whose name was Kevin Adler, and he um named this term called or coined this term called relational poverty, which is that, not only when you are poor, when you're homeless, have you lost a house, have you lost money, but you really understand that you're homeless when you've lost a community, when you've lost your friends, when you've lost your ability to connect with people, and you don't have that person that you can rely on, whose shoulder you can, cry on, whose hug you can rely on, and whose laughter, can lift up your day. And that is definitely something that I think has been extremely important and a common theme. And I would like to end by asking you one thing, which is that with all of this that is going on, with from the SNAP benefits to how this money is being distributed, from the stories of people who have been close to you, from your story yourself, there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done. And so, what are your words of wisdom or words of advice for people in my generation and the upcoming generations who want to want to take a step into this industry, but don't know where and don't know how.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that. I would say, Vedant, that number one, you are a precocious up and comer. For you to be doing this at your age, uh, it is. It's a lack of community. The number one cause of homelessness is a lack of community. And people have and I'll get to your answer. People have this false understanding of homelessness. People say, well, what if they don't want to accept services? What if they want to be homeless? The thing about being homeless and chronically homeless is it's not freedom. It's not freedom to not be able to get a good night's sleep, to have to hide from the weather, to have to run from the police. It's actually a form of captivity. And so my second point in answering your question is that we have to understand that the generations that we are standing on the shoulders right now of giants from American history. Everybody from George Washington to Martin Luther King to John McCain to Barack Obama and everybody in between. And if we don't take care of each other, then we're not going to have anybody join the military. If we don't take care of each other, then we're not going to have the next generation of leaders. I don't want to turn my head away from somebody that could be president of the United States of America. That is not that far-fetched. It is my patriotic and moral obligation to honor the social contract that we've made with veterans. That is my thing. What young people can do is study hard, study economics and history, and figure out what you want to do what do you want to be when you grow up? I'll tell you what, nobody ever said, Mommy, when I grow up, can I be homeless? Can I be homeless? Nobody ever said that. Something happened. As my friend Catherine with the MACV Foundation says, something happened. We have to take care of each other. Figure out what you want to do, study hard, play it smart, and get in where you can fit in and make a difference. You know why? Because that's what everybody did to set us up. Think about it like this, Vedant. The reason why you and I are on this call right now is because somebody in 1979 got so smart that they invented the first cell phone. And that technology and all the people that went to MIT and Stanford and Yale and Harvard and University of Dallas and everything led to where we are today. We have no excuse. We should be we are about ready to create drone cars that fly around and get me from San Diego, from Phoenix over to the beach. I mean, that's the Jetsons, man. And if we're about ready to go to Mars and we're like flying around like the Jetsons, trying to keep us out of a World War III, we need better diplomacy. If we are the most advanced civilization that Earth has ever seen, obviously, then either we get it together or one day the aliens are going to show up and say, these people suck. We're going to wipe them out. We need to start over. And that's a bad way to say it. And I'll end you with this. There's a song, and the lyrics go like this: children are innocent, teenagers are confused in the head, adults are even more confused, and the elderly, they become like children. Will there be another race that comes along and takes over for us? Maybe Martians can do better than we've done. My friend says we're like the dinosaurs, only we're doing ourselves in much faster than they did. We're going to make great pets. I don't want to be a hamster in an alien world. I know that sounds kind of out there. I'm fully cognizant of what I'm saying. If we don't take care of each other, then we're going to wipe ourselves out. We got to be careful who we elect. We got to be careful to elect the people that care about us. You know why? And I'm going to end with this. We need $10 billion. We're sending $40 billion to Argentina to prop up their universal healthcare system. We need $10 billion to get everybody off the street. That's it. An annual appropriations of $10 billion, and we could solve homelessness. If we don't do that, we're going to wipe ourselves out. It's not that much money, man. Anyway, I forgot what I was to say. I think you need to keep doing what you're doing. Stay in touch. We've got the digital technological ability to be close when we're far. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. You're in New York City, right? How is that possible? And we can't take care of little Johnny that just needs a little special ed and special assistance. I don't think it's that complicated. And I think it comes down to morality and human ethics.
Well, thank you so much, Benjamin, for joining me on my podcast. I mean, truly, this has been an amazing episode, an amazing conversation, and you're such an inspiration, and I can't thank you enough.
Yes, sir.